Hey, my name's TC Burr. Welcome to Yet, a podcast created to encourage you to get your goal or idea out of your head and into reality. On this podcast, you'll hear stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas to help you write your book, start your business, launch your podcast, or whatever it is you hope to accomplish. Because it's not that you haven't done it, it's just that you haven't done it yet. Hi, welcome to today's episode of the Yet podcast. This will be the very final episode of season 2, and I am so glad that you're here. The theme of today's episode is going to be the things that I am thankful for. So this episode will drop in late November, and around that time, people will be getting fitted for their stretchy pants, carving their turkeys, and sitting around the table talking about the things that they're thankful for. And I wanted to join in the fun and share some of the things that I'm thankful for. Before I do that, though, I want to just introduce myself in case you're new. If you are new, hey, it's glad to have you. My name is TC Burr. I am a husband, a dad, a corporate employee, a weightlifter, a Florida State football fan, a follower of Jesus, and most recently, I've also become a writer and a podcaster. I'm working on my debut novel, and I'm so excited to keep working on the story and eventually bring it out into the world. But when I started sharing with people that I was writing a book, I had so many people in my network share with me the great things they were doing. They were writing books of their own or starting businesses or launching podcasts and doing all these really fun, cool, creative things. And I remember thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to bottle up some of these stories and share that encouragement out with the rest of the world? And so that's where this podcast was born. I'm wrapping up my second season now. It's been a lot of fun. I've met some amazing guests, and I want to use this podcast to encourage and inspire budding creatives, entrepreneurs, writers to get started on their goal and pursue the dream that they've always had, but maybe they've left it on a shelf for a long time. So if that's you, I hope you'll be encouraged and inspired by some of the stories you hear on this podcast. On today's show, though, I want to just take a moment at the end of season 2 and talk a little bit about some of the things that I am personally thankful for. So the very first thing on my list, I am thankful for God and my relationship with God. So I view God not as an item on my list of things I'm thankful for, but actually the Bible describes God as the giver of every good and perfect gift. And so I don't see him as one of many gifts that I get to enjoy. I see him as the giver of every gift. Every good thing that I have and experience in life is ultimately from God and intended to make for my good and to bring glory and honor to God. And so first and foremost, that's always going to be the most important thing in my life is my relationship with Jesus, the forgiveness that I have in him, and the relationship that I have with God through him. I'm also thankful for my family, for my health, for the money that I have, the material possessions that I have. Those are all great and wonderful things. I recognize many people in the world do not have the same kind of access to. And so I'm so thankful for the things that I do have. But as it pertains to this podcast, there are a couple things that I wanted to highlight that I'm specifically thankful for. And the first might actually come as a little bit of a surprise. So I have aspirations of one day, maybe, we'll see what happens, becoming a full-time author. So making enough money selling books to quit my job and full-time focus on writing. But in the meantime, one of the things that I'm really thankful for is my employment. I, for a long time, viewed corporate employment and full-time writing as enemies of one another, two things that couldn't coexist. And to be honest, for a long time, that's why I never started writing. I thought that I could either write or I could be employed by a company. But these two things were enemies that had to contrast and could not coalesce and work together. But I've changed my perspective a little bit on that because I realize that setting out and trying to write, if you don't have a job, can be really hard. I'm realizing as I get into this process that everything costs money. Writing software, writing coaches, editors, all the things that go into writing a book, and never mind marketing and publishing. These things cost money. Not only do they cost time and creativity and energy, but they cost actual money. And so if I were to try to set out and do that without a steady income, it would be a very difficult uphill climb for me to do. So I'm so thankful for my job. I'm thankful for the ability to use the gifts that God's given me to go and provide a service to the customers of my company. And it's just really been a blessing to be able to work and also write in my free time. And one of the things that's really kind of shifted my perspective on this, I read a book early on by John Acuff. You've heard me reference him if you listen to this show, but he wrote a book called Quitter that kind of challenged my perspective on what it means to work and how you excel in your day job and do really well in your day job until such time as you're ready to take off with your dream job. So I recommend that book. It's a really good one. But one of the ways that it kind of changed my perspective is my employment gives me the ability to fund my dream. And so I can work on writing. I can practice writing and get good at writing in this meantime while I've got this layer of financial protection that I wouldn't otherwise have. And so first thing when it comes to my podcast and writing ability is my employment. I'm so thankful for it. The second thing, and the big thing that I want to focus on this show, is I am so thankful for the people who have been guests on this podcast. I have interviewed so many incredible writers, business owners, creatives, podcasters, and I've loved hearing their stories. They are people, normal people like you and me, who've decided that they sat on their dreams for long enough and they wanted to go ahead and get started. And so I want to list all of the guests that I've taught and just quickly highlight some of the things that I'm thankful for each one. So on episode 3 of this podcast, my very first guest was my friend Danielle Angel. Her story is so amazing. She started off helping a friend with her friend's small business. And once she got into it, she realized this is so much fun. I really want to start my own thing. And so she did. Go check out Yet Podcast episode 3. Listen to Danielle's story. It's amazing. After that, I interviewed in episode 4, Tracy Burton. She is an empty nester mom who took her love of baking and turned it into a business. So I know from having previously worked with Tracy that her baking skills and cooking skills are unbelievable. We used to have these parties, Christmas parties and stuff at work, and everybody would bring in food. And the things that Tracy would bring were always like high ticket items. Like everybody wanted to eat what Tracy would bring. And so just so thankful for her story and just her energy. Go check out Yet Podcast episode 4, listen to Tracy's story. On episode 6, I brought in serial entrepreneur Kevin Pruitt. Oh, there's my dog. Hey, Rosie, chill, man. This is not great podcast, but I might leave it in. Rosie's not a good dog. She's very cute, but she barks a lot. So whenever somebody walks by my yard, my sidewalk out in front of our house, she just barks and barks and barks. So I'm actually going to pause this. On episode 6 of this podcast, I interviewed my friend Kevin Pruitt. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's had the entrepreneurial gene as far back as he can remember. And one of my favorite things that I remember from his episode is I asked him what's the most encouraging thing someone's ever said to him. And he said that at one point in his career journey, someone said, hey, you are a friend maker. And he was so impacted by that. I love that about Kevin, and it's certainly true about him. So go check out that episode as well. Episode 7, I interviewed Kat Medeiros. She is a real estate agent here in Richmond, Virginia, and she works so hard to find houses and find investments for people. I call her Kathleen the Machine. We are pretty settled in our house where we live, but if we're ever looking to buy or sell, I know who I'm going to call. So go listen to Kat's episode 7 on this podcast. On episode 8, I interviewed Jennifer McCluskey. Jennifer is a career coach, consultant, and strategist. I have become friends with her over the years. I'm actually a client of Jennifer's. She has helped me so much, both in my professional career, my corporate career, and my creative endeavors. Go listen to her episode. There's a segment in that episode where I talk about, what if you never make it to the mountaintop? And one of the things that she says is like, hey, sometimes you can go on some pretty amazing hikes, even if you don't make it to the summit. So super inspirational, amazing person. Go check out Jennifer's episode. That's episode 8 of the Yet podcast. On episode 10, I talked to my friend Carrie Murphy. She is an amazing inspiration, probably one of the most inspirational people I know. She was not into sports, not athletic in high school, not into fitness, but as an adult, she started to recognize there was a joy deficiency. And so she decided to do something about it. She talks a lot about mindset and how that connects to your wellness and fitness. Carrie is a great resource to talk to if you're thinking about getting in shape or thinking about your wellness. And in general, she's just an amazingly inspirational person. So go check out episode 10 of the Yet podcast. On episode 11, I interviewed Becca Campbell. This episode is packed with inspirational advice, tactical guidance, and entrepreneurial wisdom from someone who's been at it for a long time. She started multiple businesses And her first business, Little Z's Sleep Consulting, was started out of a personal need. She had a child that was struggling to sleep at night, and it was not good news for mom and dad. And so she turned it into a company. It's been very, very successful. Go check out episode 11, listen to Becca's story. After that, episode 12, I interviewed Kristen Meyerfeld. She similarly had a desire to start a side hustle, start a business, and she created a mobility solution. So if you have a short-term need to rent a knee scooter or motorized scooter, maybe you've got surgery or an injury that you're recovering from, you don't want to purchase that thing outright, but Kristen created a business where she can rent those. So amazing story. Go check that one out. On 13, I talked to Danny Hodge of Pay Coffee. Danny loves the idea of coffee shops. He loves the way that coffee shops bring people together, the sense of community that it creates. He is an artist in the truest sense, just an awesome guy. Go check out that story, episode 13. On episode number 14, I interviewed Nathan Mills. He's a classical guitarist, one of the most talented musicians that I've ever known. But he also has completely transformed his body. So especially if you're a guy looking to kind of make some changes in your life with regards to fitness, especially mindset, all of that stuff, Nathan is a fantastic resource. And if you want to learn guitar, he's great at that too. So check out episode 14. That's Nathan Mills. Episode number 17. This is where I started to make the shift and focus a little more on writers. So the very first writer I interviewed for this show is Drew Westerly. She's working on her debut novel. And one of the things that I love about Drew's story is she's working in partnership with her best friend, Elle, who was a guest on this show as well. Elle's podcast is episode 21. But I love the idea of these two girls kind of making a goal together, locking arms and holding each other accountable. So check out both of those episodes. Drew's is episode 17 and Elle's is episode 21. Yet podcast episode 18, I connected with Kim Moseman. Kim shares her inspiring journey of finding health and happiness in the midst of her second act. So she's owned businesses. She's a certified nutritionist and personal trainer and life coach. After owning a gym for 7 years, she closed her business. And at that point, she thought she was going to fade away into the sunset, but God had other plans for Kim. So go check out that episode as well. And then on 19, I interviewed Paula Vance. Probably one of my favorite things, one of the things I'm most thankful for on this whole podcast is at one point in our episode, Paula said, hey, you know what? This is supposed to be fun. And she was talking about writing and marketing and querying her book. And that's one of those little soundtracks that I've come back to multiple times over. Like the work that you're working on, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be tough sometimes, but it is supposed to be fun. So never lose sight of that. Thanks, Paula, for that amazing insight. Episode number 24, I interviewed my friend, Emily Aborn. Emily is a content copywriter. That's what she does. Sorry, Emily. She's also a podcast host. She's a friend of mine. She's just super fun. She's quirky. She's fun. Her podcast is called Content with Character. She has a ton of good wisdom and insight on how to get your name out there, market yourself and your product in such a way that people will know, like, and trust you, which is essential to marketing your business. So go check out that episode 24, Emily Aborn. On 25, I interviewed Valerie Morris. Valerie's book, We're All Ears, helps equip readers with tools and information they need to increase their impact, influence, and success in a noisy digital world. Cool thing about Valerie, she published her book, and then she began to help other authors publish as well. She's created a podcast too. It's called Bound for Bestseller. Go check that out. And also check out episode 25 of the Yet podcast to hear Valerie Morris's story. Next up on episode 27. So you notice I'm skipping some numbers here. I did have some solo shows in the mix, but these are the interviews that I'm highlighting. So Lori Alspa, just another really inspirational story. And one of the coolest moments of this is Lori's first time ever saying I'm an author happened while we were recording this podcast. And so super cool moment for me. I'm so thankful for that. Go listen to episode 27 to hear Lori's story. Next, this is where episode 29, I interviewed Carol Wiley. Carol is an amazing person, also super inspirational and encouraging. She was a 20 plus year stay-at-home mom turned empty nester, turned self-published author. She thought that she would jump right into writing when she became an empty nester, but things took a detour when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. So even though she's been a lifetime writer, even though she had her focus on doing some fiction work once her kids left home, things kind of took a turn. She published a couple of books kind of outlining her journey walking through cancer and treatment. She used a season of trial and suffering in her own life to help other people. Super amazing. You're going to want to check that out. That's episode number 29. On episode 31, I interviewed Don Miwa. He is another author. Don was rejected. I think, I'm looking at the notes here, I think his manuscript was rejected like 86 times. And he told me he was on the brink of quitting, but some encouragement from someone close to him encouraged him to keep going. So go check out that episode with Don. That is episode number 31. Next, on episode 36, I interviewed Nathaniel Cheney. He got his inspiration for his first story on a super long cross-country motorcycle trip. You're sitting alone on the motorcycle. You got hours and hours of just open road, and he had all these ideas come. And since then, he's written several books. He is a true craftsman when it comes to writing. Some great resources on his website. Go check out that episode. You're going to love it. And then most recently, I interviewed Katie Galvin. This is on episode 37. Katie's been working on her debut novel for the last 8 years. She's in the process of querying it now. It's a legal thriller, which is my favorite type of book. So I'm so excited. She's been such an encourager for me, and really great episode. Go listen to episode 37 of the Yet podcast. So those are all the guests that I've had so far. I've got a bunch more lined up. Coming in January, I'm going to start season 3. I've already got probably at least 10 episodes recorded and a couple more on the way. I can't wait to bring you more stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas. So just to recap this one, the things that I'm particularly thankful for this season: God, my family, my health, my employment, all my previous guests. And lastly, I'd be remiss to not mention how thankful I am to you, dear listener. Thank you so much for hanging in, for listening to all these episodes, all the hours you've spent listening to me talk, the shares that you've put out on social media, the comments that you've sent my way. And especially to those of you who have written reviews, thank you so much. Your kind words mean so much, and they help get these great stories out to more people. So if you haven't written a review yet, if you've got some time, maybe between the turkey and the football game, go to your computer, go to your phone, scroll down to the bottom of your podcast app, leave me an honest 5-star review. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll see you in season 3. Hey, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you would do me a huge favor, if you got value out of this podcast, which I'm assuming maybe you did since you're still here, would you scroll down to the bottom of your podcast app and rate and review the show? And maybe share it with someone on social media or with a friend, just in a conversation. It would mean so much to get this message out to more people, and I think it would be amazing if you would share it. So that would be, as a personal favor to me, I'd really love it. Also, if you want to know more about me and what I'm working on, you can visit my website. It's tcburr.com. I hope you'll check it out. You can contact me there. Thanks again, and I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.